Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to CHAARAT Gold Holdings Interim Results Investor Presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and we'll send you an email when they are ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll, and if you'd be so kind as to give that your attention, we would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand over to Chris Eager, CFO from CHAARAT Gold Holdings. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on our results call. Maybe if I can ask you to switch to slide 5, please. So look, I just wanted to start with a brief overview of the business in the first half of 2021. We were actually very pleased with how the business performed. Specifically, we saw a substantial increase in revenue of $48 million versus 29.9, which was due to the fact that we saw higher commodity prices across the spectrum in the first half of the year relative to last year. As a result of the higher revenues, our EBITDA at the group level on an adjusted basis was $10.4 million, again a substantial increase over last year, which was just $500,000. And as finally, as a result of the equity raise that we did in February, we had a substantial increase in our cash and cash equivalents of up to $24.6 million relative to $6 million last year. So again, very pleased with the group financial performance. That was driven by very strong Kapan performance in the first half. And specifically with the production that we've had in the first half, we're still on track to achieve up to 57,000 ounces of guidance. And as a result of the strong commodity price environment, we achieved $13.8 million of EBITDA. We also are processing quite a bit more third-party ore at Kapan. In the first half, we processed 70,000 tons of ore relative to 10,000 tons last year, which contributed 1.8 million EBITDA to virtually nothing last year. So very pleased with how Kapan has performed, not only in existing operations, but also in processing third-party ore. And finally, we're still making good progress in development of the East Flank, which is something that we had flagged in the past few calls. This is a very exciting part of the mine that we look to extrapolate and exploit, and we believe that will bring in substantial free cash flow in the next couple of years, but that's progressing on schedule, and Darren will speak more to it in the upcoming slides. The other key highlights from the first half relate to Tulkubash and Kyzyltash. So at Tulkubash, as you may be aware, we published our updated BFS in May. We commenced our 2021 drilling campaign, which is on schedule and on budget. And again, we'll go through specific details as to what we've achieved there so far. And then the same thing with Kyzyltash. We are progressing per our schedule with regards to a drilling campaign, which is near completion, and then we'll have met tests expected to commence in November of this year. I'll also go into a bit later where we stand on the project financing for Tulkubash. So moving to the next slide, please. So look, just to recap, we believe the business is well on track to deliver its stated goals of achieving close to 500,000 ounces in the next 5 to 6 years. Like I said, Kapan is producing well, hasn't had any issues whatsoever this year. Again, we'll go into some of the ESG components of the business, but for the most part, we see everything ticking well over at Kapan. And Tulkubash, the key milestone there is obviously the delivery of the project financing, which is still remaining on track. It's hit a number of delays as a result of COVID last year and some of the issues that we ran into this year in Kyrgyzstan. But again, that's still continuing to progress, and we hope to make further announcements in the coming months. So maybe moving to the next slide, please. So as you can see from this picture, the company's actually made a number of appointments and also has delivered on a strategy throughout the past 3 years since the new management team took on board the business. More specifically, when we think about some of the developments this year, like I said, we've updated the BFS. We've also restructured the shift-I agreement, which simplified the overall transaction as well as provided equity input into the business. And as you may have been aware, in early August, Archie Bolinas announced that he would be stepping down from CEO, moving into a strategic advisor role. And we are in the process of, I would say we're in advanced stages of announcing the successor, which again should come out in the coming weeks, ideally. So again, we feel pretty pleased about the performance of the business over the past 3 years. Not everything has gone well. Obviously, we navigated COVID last year, but as I said, Kapan has produced consistently through the past 3 years and is now performing extremely well, albeit at higher commodity price environment. So maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Darren to go into more specifics on each of the assets. Darren.
Yep, thank you. I'll just go through a brief update on our ESG component and then move into the operations. So ESG, obviously, last year with COVID and into this year, we had to modify quite a few of our social programs. Sort of face-to-face interactions and social activities obviously could not happen in the normal way. As we've seen society moving and changing with regards to its various controls, we're glad to say that we're starting to open back up and get back to a more normal level of interaction in the community. And the pictures here just show some of the areas that we've been involved in. We're still very heavily focused on children's activities, health, education, and really empowering our communities to make the most of the opportunities that exist for them. And that's where our focus has been. We're also making sure that from a health and safety point of view, it's not just something that's in the workplace, but just trying to encourage that as much as possible so that even children are able to encourage their parents to think more safely. With regards to H1 2021 in particular, the key issue there was very primarily around COVID. We've managed the situation quite nicely initially and continuing to do so. Challenges obviously with regards to society in general. The restrictions in the societies have dropped off greatly, but we're continuing to keep in place our overall practices just to try and minimize any issues and minimize any possible risk of outbreaks within the working communities. We did have one fatal injury earlier in the year, which I talked about at various podcasts which have been going out. What we've done there is learn very extensively from what happened. And what's clear is that we have had to improve our overall assessment of understanding of risk and understanding of behavioral safety aspects, which really were the critical factors that led to this particular incident, unfortunately. So that's our focus now on sites. We're spending a lot of time talking in various teams and various small groups just to make sure that people understand exactly what's required of them to be able to go home safe and healthy every day. Do not take risks, identify the hazards, don't take any chances whatsoever, and let's make sure that we do this all together and safe. With regards to environment, continuing to work proactively to ensure the ongoing safety and environmental security of our operations. We've done significant work at Kapan tailings operation now, buttressing. When we inherited that, it's an old upstream construction rather than downstream. So we're in the process of buttressing that dam to create much more stability in what is a seismic area. So that's our focus for H1. With regards to operations, as Chris said, we've had a very successful H1. The numbers that we're showing here are obviously year-on-year performance. I'll talk a little bit about our performance to budget as well. We have modified the way that we're carrying out our mining operation in Kapan. The mine was modified to be sort of a mechanized mining operation when we took it over. What we've recognized through the last couple of years is that there are areas of this mine that are best exploited using different mining methods than mechanization. And you'll see that our tons are down year on year, but our grade is up year on year. And that's a very deliberate activity on our part, changing mining methods, as I say, in certain parts, because it's much more effective to use sort of shrinkage mining methods rather than the bulk mechanized mining. It enables us to follow the veins much more closely, enables us to prevent excessive dilution, and that way we minimize our throughput of the mill and increase our capacity to treat third-party ore as well. So overall, what we lost in tonnage, deliberately in tonnage, we gained very intentionally in grade and ended up just about 4.6% lower on AuEq ounces. Chris has already mentioned the third party. This is working very closely with a couple of mines in the area in partnership with them. We effectively have underutilized resource in our mill, and we're taking advantage of being able to utilize that for these other miners that don't necessarily have the full milling capacity to be able to bring some of these operations on. It's on a tolling basis. We don't buy the ore, we toll it and charge them effectively a fee for being able to get this material out. So overall, a very good positive year, ahead of budget, I have to say. The own ore AU EQ production, even though it was 5% down year on year, was actually slightly ahead of budget. Obviously, we did have the issues of COVID. We also had the war in Armenia towards the end of 2020, which did impact our development, did impact our ability to get the mine ready for mining operations into Q1 of this year, and that's where we had a slightly lower budget. But overall, we've exceeded that budget, and things are progressing quite nicely. And obviously, with the metal price environment, all four of the metals which we produce in Kapan, all of them are very positive compared to where they were, say, at the start of 2020. So overall, a very good result for us. On the east flank, as Chris mentioned, this is an exploration area. It's been drilled extensively in the past, but only to a P1 level using the Soviet system. So what we're in the process of doing right now is further drilling of 17 veins, which we've identified as being the best potential areas, certainly to focus on initially. And we're in the process of drilling them out to bring them up to a JORC compliant resource over the next couple of years. We will be looking at other areas because this is very adjacent to the existing workings, and we're actually developing the exploration underground from our existing workings. And if we find any areas which are appropriate to start to actually develop and mine during this process, we will do so. We don't need to wait until we've got ourselves a full resources, or this was a new mine and a full reserve. We know what the mining methods are going to be. We know how to approach this, and that's what we will do. We will exploit it as we are able to as we go along. So it's a significant drill program for this year, 13,000 meters underground. And all of this exploration will be carried out underground, none of it above ground. That's the easiest way to be able to get into these very vertical vein structures that we have here. With regards to Tulkubash, we have recommenced some of our construction activities, and we've, as Chris mentioned, we finished our bankable feasibility study earlier this year, and that has been released, which continues to show very good and robust economics for the project. Our offices and full services are now back open in country. The prevalence of COVID has dropped to quite a low level as vaccinations and natural immunity has kicked in, so we're able to get back to good operations there. We are doing engineering works this year to really be able to freeze the entire circuit, and especially around the crushing circuit, lock that in so that helps define all of the other activities that we need to do. And that then enables us to pretty much finalize all of those activities. We have started some construction on site, but that is focused around being able to really hit 2022 in an optimized manner when we start. It's already late in the season. It still feels like summer in Bishkek, but up in the hills, it's starting to get cool and actually reaching freezing at night. So we're pretty much to the end of what would be the normal construction season. And our exploration work is also now reaching the end. So we just want to get ourselves into a position where we're able to continue minimal activities over winter, but very much set ourselves up for a fast ramp up of construction in the beginning of Q1 2022. So exploration program in Tulkubash and Kyzyltash, as I mentioned, is now in the final stages. We had a few areas that we were targeting for this year. Infill drilling around the existing Tulkubash, and we've done in excess of 7,500 meters now, getting close to the 10,000. That's focusing on turning and converting inferred and unclassified into M&A so that we can extend the life of the pit even further than we have from our BFS. We've also gone into the Karator and the Ishikuldi regions, which are just a little bit further northeast from the existing areas that we've been looking at. Pure exploration at this moment, 2,000 meters of exploration drilling, 9,500 meters of trenching. Initial results look very promising. Obviously, we've got a lot more work to do to understand the resource model in those particular areas, but certainly some of the initial metallurgical results coming back and showing that effectively the mineralization is continuing on strike, and there is gold in the ground that we may be able to move to a resource and a reserve at a later date to continue the operation. Kyzyltash drilling has been effectively wrapped up now. We're on the last hole. The good news from that is effectively we did twin drilling this year. We're collecting core to be able to do metallurgical testing to identify the optimum processing route for this sulfide material. And those twin holes have come back and confirmed that all the previous drilling that was done quite some time ago, very good consistency between the new holes and the old holes. So that confirms the resource and the reserve that exists for that deposit already. Assays on the material should be complete around October. That will enable us to determine which materials we're going to send off for testing. And then we've contracted and have in place a full metallurgical test program in Canada to be able to, as I say, define what is the optimum sort of processing route for this sulfide material. And with that, I'll pass back to Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Look, so I'll run you through a few of the key numbers from our H1 results, which I've already spoken about. But look, starting with Kapan, and these are some of the operational numbers that Darren's already spoken to. So whilst tons were down, grade was up, and effectively AU equipment production was slightly down versus last year, but all done with quite deliberate reasons. So we're actually quite pleased with how we performed in the first half. And as you can see also, and highlight a couple of times, that the third-party ore was dramatically higher versus last year, which also contributed to the EBITDA. So the Kapan numbers, again, $13.8 million of EBITDA relative to $4.1 million last year. And again, our cash cost came down, and CapEx was down, but that's more of a timing issue. We're still guidance for $7 to $8 million for this year of total CapEx at Kapan. So overall, we think the business has performed quite solidly in the first half as a group perspective, as you can see in some of the numbers below, with adjusted EBITDA at $10.4 million relative to $500,000 last year. And we also made a significant dent in our external debt through the equity raise that we did in February, which was not only fresh cash in the business, but also a debt to equity swap. So again, pleased with how the performance has happened the first half of the year, and we're hoping that continues in the second half. Maybe moving to the next slide, just to go a little bit more into the balance sheet side of things. When we look at the business in the first half, again, we had the equity raise of $52 million, which was a $22 million debt to equity swap, and then also fresh cash of circa $30 million into the business. So our overall net debt position dropped dramatically from $64.5 million to $19 million at the end of June 30th of this year. We also spent quite a bit of time, Darren and I, with Shift Eye, our mining contractor, in simplifying the arrangement that we have with them. And so in June, we updated the market with the new details, but effectively the contract simplifies things dramatically, whereby we'll retain 100% ownership of the asset, but Shift Eye will contribute part of their, call it, works or proceeds into equity into the business. So effectively reducing the CapEx of the project from $115 million to $105 million. So quite pleased. So as we look to the future, we have a couple of financing initiatives that are on the go. We have with accrued interest, roughly $26 million of convertible bonds due at the end of October. We're in the process of discussing the options with our convertible holders, and we'll also be refinancing those notes in due course as they're coming mature quite soon. And look, I'll talk about the project financing maybe on the next slide. So moving to the next slide, this provides some of the key numbers with regards to the Tulkubash BFS that we updated the market in May. So again, quite robust economics, as you can see on the top part of the page, with a post-tax IRR of 25%, and that was obviously at $1,450 gold price. And so in the bottom, we provided the sensitivities that give you the key metrics at different gold price environments. So the project is very robust. We see continued, call it, gold opportunities and exploration as we're going down the valley. Obviously, the key now for the business is to get the project fully funded, and we have launched obviously a number of financing initiatives last year and continued this year. I will say that unfortunately, due to a couple of events, but most notably the external factors regarding the Kumtor mine and the government has been unhelpful in our endeavors to complete the project financing. So we pushed quite hard in June and in early July, but had to put effectively pencils down because of the holiday period, and we'll be relaunching our initiatives on the project financing shortly. We'll be looking to update the market with regards to how we progress. It's obviously a key area for the business. Nobody has questioned the robustness of the economics of the project. Technically, it's very sound. We had the BFS certified by an independent third party. So it's really down to just people seeing through the country, call it, situation that has occurred over the past several months. And maybe just wrapping up in the next couple of slides, when we look at our business and how we are trading relative to what the brokers are saying. You've seen the slide before, but we still believe there's substantial value in the share price. As we deliver the story, obviously we know we have a couple key milestones we have to execute on, the project financing being one of them. We believe that even with what we've done to date, that there's substantial value that continues in the stock, as you can see from this graph. So to the last slide, with upcoming milestones, again, we've been pretty good at delivering on our stated milestones, with the exception of the Tulkubash project financing. But obviously, we completed the BFS and the issue document in the first half of the year. We expect the project financing to come to a head here in the next month or so. And as you can see from the page, we'll continue to develop the East Flank at Kapan, as well as deliver solid results in this commodity environment, which is going to be quite beneficial to the business. And as Darren highlighted as well, we will continue to progress Kyzyltash with the network. And then on the corporate side, obviously, we're going to continue to reduce our debt profile through the repayment of the Kapan loan, as well as to execute on the project financing. So look, with that, we'll take a pause, open up for questions, and I'll turn it back over to Mark.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. Darren, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company do take a few moments to review those investor questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet company dashboard. We will notify you when that's ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after this presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. Chris, Darren, I wondered if you'd be so kind really, to open up the Q&A tab. You'll see a number of questions that have been submitted by investors, and thank you to those investors that have submitted questions. Could I please ask you to read out the question and, where appropriate, to give a response? Thank you.
Sure. So maybe I'll start with the first couple, and then we can open up for other questions. So the first question has to do with Archim's departure of the business. So look, Archim was a great asset to the business with regards to a real knack of looking at M&A opportunities. As we look to the future, he'll continue to participate in that role as a strategic advisor. But we are looking to bring in a CEO with substantial prior mining operating experience that I think will be very additive to the business as we're moving into construction of the Tulkubash asset and then eventually production. So that's the reason for Archim's transition. So he stays part of the team, but obviously we're looking to augment the overall management team with a more operating focused CEO. Maybe moving on to the next question, has to do with good results but little interest in the stock. We appreciate that. Obviously, we do what we can with regards to marketing and talking to investors. I think we have a lot of people that appreciate where the business is heading, and effectively they're holding on to the stock, and therefore we have low volumes. We do actually, there's a question about social media. We do quite a bit with regards to LinkedIn and as well as Facebook. And you can see on our website all the social media activity that occurs in the business with regards to the activities both in Kapan as well as in Kyrgyzstan. Next question is, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for CHAARAT over the next 6 months? So look, I think it's maybe not a too complicated answer in the sense that we believe just to continue to execute on our strategy. We think we've positioned Tulkubash to be a very attractive mine, albeit we need to get it built. It's going to be a low cash cost at $860 per ounce. Producing 100,000 ounces will generate over $70 million of free cash flow, so it's going to be incredibly accretive to the business. But we have to get that project fully funded and into construction. So I see that as one key milestone. Obviously, the development of East Flank and continuing to work on developing Kyzyltash. The market continues to sort of forget about Kyzyltash, but this is our original asset, our largest asset of 5.4 million ounces. So a massive gold deposit. And I think as we look to the next 6 months, we will be continuing to develop this asset, which also should create some value to our shareholders. Next question.
Within the next 6 months, we will have the results back on the metallurgical test work, which will really help us determine where we go next on that project.
Makes sense. The next question is about the convertible bonds. Can you expand on the options for the October convertible bonds? So we have, like I said, 26 million of bonds coming due, and that includes accrued interest. There's a number of options on the table for the refinancing of those bonds. We do have some cash on our balance sheet, so we can obviously use that to pay back the bonds, or part of the bonds. We know the investors that are in the bonds. There's only about 15 to 20 of them, and they're what I call more friends and family type investors. Many of them would like to be owners of the stock, so I could see a conversion of that to equity at some point. And also, the other opportunity is we are looking as part of the project financing for Tulkubash to do a larger financing that would not only take care of the Tulkubash financing, but also refinance our existing debts, which would include the convertible bonds. So we have 3 or 4 different options about the CBs with regards to the refinancing events that are coming up in the next couple of months. The next question is, do you see M&A forming of your growth moving forward? Look, I would say M&A is still part of our DNA. We spend time on M&A. We can't count on it. We do think that there's some interesting opportunities that exist in the marketplace. Obviously, it hasn't happened over the past 3 years. We bought Kapan in early 2019, but it is an area of focus. Obviously, as we all know, the world has gone a little bit goofy in the past 18 months with COVID, but things are starting to settle down, and we're seeing a bit more momentum on the M&A side. But again, we do see that as part of the strategy. But I would say that people should focus on our existing assets because M&A is obviously not done until it's done. And the last question was along M&A as well, which I think I covered.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. And I think you're right that final question from David, any more M&A on the radar, which I think you just touched on the previous question. Chris, Darren, for the time being, that certainly concludes any of the questions that we've received from investors on the call today. Thank you to those that have submitted them, and if any more do come through, obviously we'll make these available to the company for their review post the meeting. On the basis that we don't have any further questions, Chris, Darren, firstly, thank you once again, but perhaps I could just hand back to you for a few closing comments. There is one question from Charlie that's just popped up, so perhaps I could ask you to maybe review that and if appropriate to give a response. And then maybe if I could ask you for a few closing comments before I redirect investors to provide you with their thoughts and expectations by giving you their feedback.
Okay. Darren, you want to maybe handle the question?
Yep, I can take this one. So as far as the third-party ore, I would say that the reliability is quite good. This is a local mine to Kapan, so very close supply chains. It's been under ownership of this company for probably about the last 9 months now, I would say. They've shown themselves to be very reliable. We figured that we would probably get about 8,000 tons a month from them. We've had more than that. They're actually working very closely with us, and their ore is different to ours. So we're actually making some modifications, within our existing mill to be able to improve their recoveries further, which we'll be able to make use of as well. So there's very much a synergy of relationship between the two. So I don't see anything that will compromise our ability to continue to get ore from them going forward, and probably even more tons than we've seen so far.
Okay. So maybe with that last answer, I'll just closing remark again. Thank you for your support as investors, for some of you, and I appreciate your patience as we're executing our strategy. Again, we understand The Tulkubash project financing is a key milestone. We know that we're working on it. Obviously, we've had to navigate a few concerns within the country, but as I said, Kapan is producing very nicely, and we're pleased with the business. Albeit, we know we have to get Tulkubash funded for construction, and that's going to be updated to the market in the next month or so. So with that, thank you very much for joining us today, and please let us know if you have any further questions.
Chris, Darren, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please could I ask you not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can really better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CHAARAT Gold Holdings, I'd like to thank you for attending today's investor presentation. That now concludes today's session, and good morning to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.